don't want to work are not bothered clearly about getting money from somewhere. We're back after the news this morning at 10 o'clock. We're going to try and bring you the news again at 11 o'clock, so do stick with us. But let's get back to morning, shall we? Never fear, we're still here. You're listening to BBC Radio Scotland with me, Connie McLaughlin. You don't need the news anyway, just stick with us. Coming up in the next hour.
People are really interested in the human stories in photographs like these, but less common is an interest in the people who took the photographs.
Yes, a photo, right, of 3 little girls fleeing Nazi Germany has become an iconic image of the Second World War. You might have seen it. But what about the person behind the camera? Well, we're going to be hearing their story and how it brings the 80-year-old mystery surrounding the girls to Glasgow. Plus,
a young woman found dead outdoors is always a matter of concern.
In 2005, the body of a Swedish woman washed up on the shores of Prestwick Beach. Journalist Hazel Martin is going to be here to tell us why she's revisiting the case almost 20 years later.
All the conversations that matter.
Mornings on BBC Radio Scotland.
As I say, apologies about that if you were waiting for the news. It is just coming up to 4 minutes after 10. It is Tuesday, right? And that means if you're used to listening to the programme, you'll know it is Name the Place Day. Put your pen and your paper on the table. Just get them ready because I'm going to be giving you the first clue in just a second, right? If you've not played before, why not give it a go this week? This could be your first time. This is how it works, right? Carol Huff is a professor of onomastics from Glasgow University. She sends us a list of clues that takes us to a place in Scotland. And I'm telling you, it does sound simple, right? It is tricky. It's not almost as easy as it might sound. So, and when you hear this noise, that's the klaxon. That means that someone very clever, some clever clog somewhere in the country has got it right. Okay, so you're listening out for that noise and you're listening out for the clues. I will dot the clues throughout the programme for the next 2 hours. There's 6 in total. And then later at the end of the show, Carol will come back and she'll go over the clues and tell you how she got there. Right, okay, so here's clue number 1. Today's place name shares a component with the name of a bridge over the River Forth. Right, today's place name shares a component with the name of a bridge over the River Forth. Does that make any sense to you? If it does, 80295 is the way to get in touch. I'm going to be giving you much, much more clues. We're going to have lots to talk about for the next couple of hours, including some really good music as well. So let's start things off this morning with Elton John.
Pale blind, strong waiting for the gift of sound and vision. And I will say, waiting for the gift of sound and vision. Drifting into my solitude, over my head. Don't you wonder sometimes about sound and vision?
BBC Radio Scotland, 8 minutes after 10. Hope you're having a good day so far. Thank you, by the way, to everyone who got in touch with us this morning for their phone in. We were talking about young people, are they unreliable? Loads of you getting in touch. I just want to make sure that I get through some of these texts before we move on. This one from James says, "Hi Connie, regarding the hiring of young folk, I've taken the hard decision of bringing an apprentice into my business. A bit of a gamble as self-employed isn't always guaranteed. The young boy who started was keen and turned up on time and never missed a shift, but his work ethic definitely was lacking. After a few months, he began to disappear onto the phone, and after getting college and enrolled in college, he decided he didn't want to learn decorating anymore. Once bitten, twice shy, and it's a bit of a shame, as I'd love to pass on what I've learned from my trade to people moving forward." This one just quickly from BJ in Edinburgh says, "I think the disproportionate opportunities for young kids from private schools versus the majority of state schools should be aligned with your debate, Connie, as well. It's a betrayal in this country, has been for decades. It's an absolute disgrace. No equal opportunities for all our kids, sadly." And keep them coming in. 80295 is the way if you want to get in touch with me. I'm going to give you the second clue for Name the Place. Right, I've given you the first one. Today's place name shares a component with the name of a bridge over the River Forth. That was clue number 1. Clue number 2, it shares another component with the name of a historical county of Scotland. It shares another component with the name of a historical county of Scotland. If you're playing along, I can hear people giving it, scribbling along in the background just to make sure they've got all the clues. So don't worry, I'm going to, as I say, pepper them right across the programme. So keep listening in if you're playing Name the Place this week. 80295 is the way to get in touch with me if you want to play Name the Place today. Right, okay, it is coming up to 10 past 10. In January, the audio series The Girls, the Holocaust Safe House, was released. I don't know if you've seen this or heard this. It told the forgotten story of a wartime hostel for Jewish girls in Tynemouth, which took in more than 20 girls from across Europe. 3 of these girls were captured in a now iconic photograph as they arrived in Liverpool Street Station after fleeing Nazi Germany. And while the series follows their stories, since its release in January, it's also uncovered one of something a little bit closer to home, and it solved a little bit of a mystery. Listen to this.
People are really interested in the human stories in photographs like these, but less common is an interest in the people who took the photographs.
We knew that he'd taken photographs all his life, and we've got lots of pictures. My dad always talked about him being, really keen amateur photographer, but that was always in his kind of later years. So that this revelation of a possible kind of career as a photographer in the kind of late 30s was a complete shock, but a fabulous one.
We can't say for certain which man took the picture, but whoever did, they couldn't have known their photo of 3 little children would become iconic.
So that is a little flavour of the story. Let's go into it in a little bit more detail. Jane Downs is the producer at BBC Newcastle. Morning, Jane.
Hello, Connie.
Hiya, as is Joe Lonsdale. Morning, Joe.
Hello, hi.
And Gordon Stevenson, who's a journalist and grandson of John F. Stevenson, who we think is the man that had taken the photo of these 3 girls that we're talking about. Morning, Gordon.
Good morning, Connie.
Right, okay. Jane, Joe, who wants to talk first? Who wants to tell me a little bit about, I guess, the story itself and where this came from?
Well, it all started for us when we booked a guest for our morning programme at BBC Newcastle, and she had written a book about her grandmother's life. Her grandmother was called Alice Urbach and was a celebrity chef in Vienna in the 1930s, a bit like Nigella Lawson. And when she had come on and she was telling a story about her grandmother who had fled Nazi persecution and come to the UK, she mentioned that she lived in Tynemouth, which is the reason that we got her on. And when she came on, she started talking about how she'd run this hostel for more than 20 Jewish girls who were brought here by the Jewish community on Tyneside. And I had never heard of this. And Jo, my colleague, is our religious and ethics producer, and she had never heard of it either. So between us, we couldn't figure out why, if 20 lives had been saved and they'd lived in our area for a significant amount of time, nobody here would remember anything about it. So that's when it all started, about a year ago now, actually.
And from there, so we made the series, and during the series, we used a photograph, a black and white photograph, which was of two of the girls, Inga and Ruth, who came here. And that's the reason then when we released the initial podcast back in January, we used that photo. But Ruth and Inga, who's still alive, Inga always said, I don't know who the other girl in that photograph is. She was the unknown girl. When we released the series in January, the twin daughters of that other girl got in touch with us, and they said, that's our mother. And for ages, we've been looking for the other two girls, and Inga had been looking for the other person in the photograph, if you see what I mean. So there were two families who had been looking for each other. So we decided to make a new episode for the podcast, which was really about that photograph, that moment in time. But as well as telling the story of the three girls in front of the photograph, we also wanted to tell the story of the man behind the photograph. And that's where you come in, because we eventually, by a very long route, because it took us loads and loads of research, found out that he was almost certainly a man called John F. Stevenson, who was from Glasgow.
Yeah, Gordon, where do you come into this then? Because this was a bit of a surprise for you, even thinking about your grandfather's past, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, it's a complete and utter surprise, but it was a lovely one. I just went round to my mum and dad's one Thursday morning, and my dad had received an email, and that's where it all kind of kicked off for me, or us as a family, just this discovering this whole kind of background to him. So it was a complete revelation, but immediately we just hoped that it was him, and it was just a great discovery, and we were just all amazed and delighted, absolutely delighted.
And Jane, as Gordon was saying there, you can't know for definite that it was his grandfather, but everything in terms of the signs suggests that it was him.
Well, it was a bit of a mission, to say the least, to find out who took the picture. So the actual image now is owned by Getty Images, great big massive company who own a lot of images, and they bought the archive that it was a part of. It was taken by a photographer who worked for the Topical Press Agency, but they still have all the documents relating to the day books where the photographers would come rushing in with their glass plates out of their old-fashioned cameras and sign them in and get paid for them. And they had the day book from the 5th of July 1939 when the picture was taken. So we went down to London and we had a look at that, which was amazing. Jo had a whale of a time in the archives looking at all these files. We saw the original glass plate, the file that the picture, it was just fascinating. And so we saw the name Stevenson attached, but it was spelt PH, Stevenson with a PH. And so we started kind of trying to figure out who this might have been. We went through there, that you can see all the Getty images online. There's a website where you can kind of search each one down. And so we looked at the images that this man Stevenson had taken, and there was two different versions of his work. So there was one assigned to a G. Stevenson and one to a John F. Stevenson. So then Getty found the actual cards relating to where those photographers lived and where they'd sent the checks when they paid them, and one address was in Walthamstow in London and one was on Calder Street in Glasgow.
And so we looked at both of those, and George Stevenson had died in the 1950s, but John F. Stevenson, all we had was an address for him in the 1930s, and I have to say the people of Scotland were just so unbelievably helpful. The National Records of Scotland went out of their way to help us. They researched it and they've provided birth and death certificates so we could trace the addresses. So we finally ended up with an address for Gordon's father, but he'd moved in recently, and so I rang the estate agent who had and I said, look, is there any way, I know you can't give us his details, could you send an email to him saying the BBC are trying to get in touch? We think that his father took this stunning photograph that is so significant historically. We'd love to speak to the family. And she sent an email on to Gordon's father, and that's how Gordon ended up getting in touch with us. And that was a whole new part of the podcast, and just such a lovely part for Jane and I.
Oh, but listen, bravo, first and foremost. That was some great detective work.
It's complete detective work, isn't
It
it?
was tough, yeah.
There was a lot of swearing on various ancestry websites. I
I
got free
bet.
trials to everything, and it just was scouring through all these databases, and it's like, well, he's called J.F. Stevenson, but he's a year too early. And just in the end, this wonderful man at the National Records of Scotland, I think it sounded like in his lunch break, he'd just gone off and found out different addresses and jobs, and just really narrowed it down.
They were wonderful. Big shout out for Alistair Cooper.
Oh,
And then Gordon rang me, and I was frying sausages, and he went, my name is Gordon Stevenson. And I was like, oh my gosh, you
I've never
cannot,
had a reaction
how
like
pleased
that.
I am.
Ever phoning anybody?
Right, well, tell us then about that moment. So you were saying obviously this is a bit of a surprise because you didn't know necessarily that that period of what your life that your grandfather was sort of what he was doing then. But what did you know? Tell us about him.
Well, we knew, as I said to Jane and Joe at the time, we knew that he was. My dad always talked about him being a very keen amateur photographer, which we knew about. And he's later, when he retired, he was always just taking photographs. There was photographs all over the house, and he was a keen member of the YMCA Camera Club in Sauchiehall Street, and he would take my dad along on Monday nights and develop films. And then my dad even was telling me that he ended up turning his kitchen into a bit of a dark room in the house in Carntine, and black curtains up in the kitchen, driving my grandmother demented. So there was photographs literally scattered all over the house. So we knew that. But this period of the 30s was a real mystery, because we knew, he was born 1898, and we knew he was enlisted in the First World War, lied about his age actually to join. So we knew this early part, and we knew he worked at the Pavilion through the 1920s as an electrician, and he knew all the kind of music hall stars of the day, and he was the guy that operated the spotlight actually on the main stage. So he had this remarkable kind of life, living through all the kind of 1920s and all the kind of stars that would come to Glasgow, and get quite pally with a lot of them. And he used to write sketches and jokes, and we've got notebooks and all sorts of things left over from him. But he was writing down little skits and sketches and things. So we knew all that part. And then he got married in 39. My dad was born in 42. So from there on, we have got, obviously we knew exactly the course of his life. But this period from the late 1920s through to the late 30s was a bit of a black hole.
So there's no way of knowing whether or not he knew just how iconic that photograph that he'd taken or think he'd taken.
No, not at all. I mean, we it's the kind of thing that I think photography was certainly kind of press photography would have been in its infancy, and it was he just never. It was something that he never talked about at all. I mean, so my dad, this came as much of a kind of shock to my dad. He knew that his father had been in England before he was born, and he spent time in Coventry and Cromer. He'd lodged on the Norfolk coast and in Coventry. So we knew that he'd spent a considerable amount of time in England. But to see the pictures in Getty Archive and this link to this particular photograph of the girls was just astonishing. And it's lovely. I mean, as a family, it's lovely to know that this photo has helped play a part in kind of bringing the girls' families together. And it's just lovely to be a link in the story, really.
Joe, that's what I was going to just ask finally about the significance of this photograph for as Gordon was saying, for the girls' family, and they met up, didn't they?
They did, yes. It was on the One Show last night, so that's still available on iPlayer. And so they filmed that, and they had part of their archives had been the Imperial War Museum, so we thought it would be a lovely place for them to meet. So Inga, who is the only girl of the three that's still alive, met with Debbie and Helen Singer, who are the twin daughters of Hannah Singer, or Hannah Kona she was when she arrived. And it was lovely for them, because the Singers in particular, they really was so important for them to meet Inga and know more about her, and to just exchange stories of their their lives since that photograph was taken 84 years ago this week.
And also for people to know their names, that meant an awful lot to all of them. That
not just the girls.
For so many years, people had looked at that photograph, millions of people. I mean, it was in the national newspaper the next day. It's been all over the world and used a lot of times. And nobody knew their names. So the singers went to the Getty Archive and they changed the caption on that picture in the database. So now whenever it's used, it will have their names attached to it. And that's something we're all very proud of.
Mm-hmm.
Gordon, what do you think your grandfather would make of all this?
Well, I think he'd be very. I mean, he was a real character. I mean, he would be loving this. To be perfectly honest, I'm quite sure he would be absolutely loving it. He'd be very proud. And I mean, my dad, when I went round yesterday morning, and him and my mum and I listened to the latest episode of the podcast, and my dad was very emotional at the end of it, and he actually said, "I just wish, my dad was here to see how this is all kind of unfolded, and he misses him greatly even to this day, and I know that he would absolutely love this whole kind of coming together of this story, and just a happy ending to what on the background to which was quite horrific circumstances.
It's a remarkable story. Thank you so much, Jane and Joel, for taking the time to tell it. First and foremost, it's been great to have you both on. And Gordon, thanks for your time and telling us all about your granddad.
No, you're more than welcome. That was lovely. Thank you very much for having me on.
Yep, that was Jane Downs, producer at BBC Newcastle, Joe Lonsdale, who's also a producer there, and Gordon Stevenson there, journalist and grandson of John F. Stevenson, who we think was the man behind the picture, The Girls. Right, it is 10:24.
Things have been kind of quiet for Coffin Ed Johnson and Gravedigger Jones.
Except for the diplomat who moonlights.
Or the nun who believes it's better to give than to receive.
There's a photographer who winds up on both ends of the shooting.
And a junkie who'll do anything to go to jail.
You gotta arrest me, man. I stole that wheel.
But their biggest problem is a very lively corpse named Charleston Blue.
He came back from the dead.
And this time, the situation looks grave.
Come Back, Charleston Blue, rated PG.
You're listening to Mornings with me, Connie McLaughlin, BBC Radio Scotland. Still to come between now and noon, over 80% now of female football players have reported discomfort from their boots, and they admit that it's having a bit of an impact on their performance. So we're asking, are football boots sexist? We're going to be discussing that in more detail. And remember, it's our property surgery today. If you have got maybe something you'd like to ask, maybe something to do with your mortgage or something to do with renting or buying, or maybe you're a little puzzled over some planning permission, give our experts a call right now. You can do that 08085 92 95 00, or you can send us a text on 80295.
Got something to say? Text 80295. Standard message rates apply.
Mornings on BBC Radio Scotland.
Do you want to get off at the function? I just heard it's gonna be one of those funky things. Do you want to get off at the function? I just heard it's gonna be one of those funky things. If you want to say it's right on time. What do you future to be part of? Let's get off. Do you want to get off at the function? I just heard it's gonna be one of those funky things. Do you want to get off at the function? I just heard it's gonna be one of those funky things.
way in the underwater area.
I just heard it's gonna be one of those funky things.
With the police like an anti-body machine.
Face it and when you listen to the passion of the party. Victory made of blood. We did not come here to just love. We've only come to dance, but dance to take us home.
Face with that mouth. Face to face with that mouth. Face to face with that mouth.
We've only come to dance, but dance to take us home. Do you want to get up? Let's get up. Let's get up.
You're listening to BBC Radio Scotland. It is Tuesday morning, which means it's time to welcome back our property surgery with Alison Hattrick from Inverclyde Letting Agency. Morning, Alison.
Morning.
And Anthony McGoldrick from Mortgagewise Scotland. Morning, Anthony.
Morning.
Lots and lots and lots to talk about, as always. Today, we're going to be opening up the phone lines after 11 o'clock. So any questions, anything at all, sort of queries regarding mortgages, selling, buying, anything you've got, you can get in touch with our experts, 80295, or you can give them a call, 08085 92 95 00. But before we do that, there's been an interesting story this morning, Anthony, about the rental market. We know how difficult it is, right, for people, because there's clearly a shortage of homes. But also, if you've got kids or if you've got that, special pet in your life that you want to live with you, it's becoming even trickier to find the right place, we're told.
Yes, absolutely. I saw that article this morning. I was kind of quite surprised by it, and also in the same way, kind of like not surprised. I'll tell you what I mean. Like, the surprise in that I would have thought that wouldn't have been possible under kind of regulations and things, but also not surprised because I know how competitive the rental market is. So it's very much in the same way that the buying and selling market is a seller's market just now, or was maybe until just recently. The lettings market is quite similar in that it's a kind of landlord's market. There's more demand than supply, so they can cherry pick tenants. So I'm kind of surprised at the fact that people have been able to actively advertise no children, but I'm not surprised that landlords are maybe choosing not to take people with children. Obviously they'll be thinking, well, children could maybe damage things in the property, whereas it's two professional adults, it's less likely.
Alison, this is your area of expertise. What are you seeing?
Well, I'm also astonished that people would be advertising to eliminate a great part of the market for them. So no children probably eliminates quite a lot of longer term tenants that could be really good for landlords, albeit that there is obviously a risk with any tenant. We certainly have found that there's been no issue with having families move into properties, and in fact we've got somebody at the moment who's applied for a property in the West End, and they have 3 children, and we wouldn't even have considered discarding them because they happen to have children. The same really applies to pets, because so many people got pets during COVID that it's almost become run of the mill for people to ask to move into a rented property with pets. And in the same way, consumer regulations say that you can't have blanket bans on pets, surely the same must apply to people having children, if not more so. I think it's very strange as a choice for landlords.
Yeah, no, I'm just wondering whether or not you've had any landlords come to you and say, listen, this is the type of person I'm looking for. You know, the market is so buoyant right now that, I can sort of pick and choose. Have you had landlords say that to you, that they've got a sort of preference in terms of the people that they want in the house?
Well, they will consider it when we get 2 or 3 people that are interested in our property, which happens quite often. We will look at whether they're going to be reliable. Probably of more interest to our landlords is whether or not we can get a rent guarantee with the tenant, because that gives them a bit of security in terms of the rent coming in. Certainly, our landlords are pretty understanding of tenants with different circumstances. So we've not really found it to be an issue in our particular case.
Just looking at the market right now, and given the fact that interest rates, the way things are right now, it's impacting lots of things. So impacting the rental market, which we'll talk about after 11 o'clock. And again, if you've got any questions on that, get them into us. But Anthony, when you look at the way interest rates are affecting house prices, what are we seeing there?
Yeah, so it's a bit of a kind of strange situation at the minute, because obviously interest rates have went up quite a bit, and that will naturally have an effect on property prices. I feel that the impact is a lot more down south than it is up here, just because of the way the market's structured with kind of home reports and things up here. But what we are kind of finding is that sellers still have expectations as if it was last year, not realising that it's actually kind of slightly different market. So it's difficult trying to manage expectations, because buyers can't afford to pay as much, but sellers still want what they would have got last year, and it's trying to kind of get some sort of middle ground where people can agree on the sale. But certainly things just aren't selling for as much as they were last year, just kind of in general.
Right, okay. If you're in that position right now, if you're about to put your house in the market, if you are, maybe your house is on the market and it's just a little bit sluggish, get your thoughts, get your texts in, and we'll hopefully get some answers for you from Anthony and Alison. 80295, or you can give them a call, 08085 92 95 00. They're back after 11.
Get in touch with BBC Radio Scotland.
You can call our free phone number on 08085 92 95 00. Text 80295. Standard message rates apply.
This is BBC Radio Scotland.
You're a freak. Sweet. Freak. Come on, come on, come on, yeah. Come on, baby. Come on, come on, come on, baby. Come on, come on, come on, yeah. Come here, baby. I can't stand it. I can't take much more. The way you dance, oh baby, you move your body like you're teasing me. Oh yeah, baby, oh baby. I love you day and night. I'm with you wrong, alright. I'll keep you satisfied, 'cause satisfaction's guaranteed. Oh baby, sure enough you mean that much to me. Girl, I need your love. Just give me all your love. Love you, oh baby. Oh, right now, right here, baby. Come on, come on, come on, yeah. Come on, come on, come on, baby. Come on, come on, come on, yeah. Come on, baby. There's no one like you in this world. Oh no, baby. No, baby. You're so pretty. what you get. Don't stop, babe. No, babe. Oh, I love you day and night. I'm with you wrong, alright. I'll keep you satisfied, cause satisfaction's guaranteed. Oh, baby, sure enough you mean that much to me. Girl, I need your love. Just give me all your love. Love you, oh, baby. Oh, right here, baby. Come on, come on, come on, yeah. Come on, come on, come on, baby. Come on, come on, come on, yeah. Right on, baby. Oh, come on. Give it. Right on. Baby, come on. Come on, baby. Oh, I'm here to get it. I'm gonna stay with you. Come on, come on.
10:39 here on BBC Radio Scotland. I hope you're doing well on this Tuesday. We are playing Name the Place. If you are playing along, here comes clue 3 for you, right? It has a brutalist attraction. It has a brutalist attraction, right? That's clue number 3. Let me just run through clue number 1 and 2 for you again, if you've missed them, right? Clue number 1, today's place name shares a component with the name of a bridge over the River Forth. Today's place name shares a component with the name of a bridge over the River Forth. Clue number 2, it shares another component with the name of a historical county of Scotland. Right? Clue number 3, it has a brutalist attraction. 80295. Does that get you to a place in Scotland? If it does, that's the number to text me. And we've not heard a klaxon, we've not got a right answer yet, but maybe that might do the trick. Let me know. Right, okay. It is 10:40 here on BBC Radio Scotland. And I don't know if you've seen this, but we're talking about football boots. Are they sexist, right? A new study from the European Club Association thinks so, because it found that 82% of players say that uncomfortable boots will affect their performance. So, why is it so hard to find suitable footwear for women, right? And with female athletes at greater risk of injury, when does discomfort become actually downright dangerous? Here to chat more about this is Suzanne Mulvey, who's a former Scotland footballer. Morning, Suzanne.
Hi, morning, how are you?
I'm not bad, thanks. I'm not bad. Right, talk to me about your experiences of boots. Something so basic that you need to make sure that you're feeling comfortable to do the job properly. But what was it like for you?
Yeah, I've experienced a lot of discomfort in the past wearing football boots, mainly in the heel area. I've also had teammates who've had to cut parts of their football boots away or cut a little slit in the back just so that they fit a bit better. So it's definitely something that has caused a lot of problems in the past for myself and quite a lot of other females that I know as well.
Right, so what is it about the boots that are so uncomfortable?
Well, definitely, I mean, the shape in men's and women's feet are different in terms of just the size, the actual anatomy. So as well, typically the weight is different as well. So you've got, most females weigh less, so you've got less weight. And with the studs, they should be a different length because of the weight of the players as well. So there's a lot of different factors that in the past weren't actually looked at. But over, recently there has been a little bit. I've had a little bit of research and a look about at different brands, and there actually has been a bit of progress. Puma recently I've had a couple that have been, female-led, a couple of boots, but literally in the past couple of weeks, Nike have released a pair that are specifically, around women in mind from research, from looking at women's anatomy. They've got things like a round stud area which could prevent ACL injuries, which is obviously a lot higher, and I think it's 2.5 times more likely that women will have ACL injuries than men. So it's things like that have been looked at, not just comfort but also as well injury prevention.
Just on that point about the ACL injuries, we've spoken about that in this programme before, and you're absolutely right in terms of the statistics around the amount of injuries that the women seem to get are unbelievable actually. Do you think this could be, and there's a lot of reasons that people have attributed to the cause for that. But in your experiences, in the way that wearing ill-fitting boots has made you feel, does that majorly surprise you that we're seeing numbers like that in terms of those types of injuries because of the boots that people are wearing?
Yeah, I think, as I mentioned previous, in terms of the size of the studs and things like that, obviously if it's longer studs, to kind of help with the weight of a male rather than a female's anatomy, then, they would maybe go into the ground further than they should, and you're not given as much, freedom of movement, and then if your studs catch, then your knee can twist, things like that. There's no obviously research to say if that is definitely what causes these ACL injuries, but of course it's something that we think could possibly be it. The fact that obviously they're now saying that women's boots should be geared towards women, and then if obviously women are getting more of this particular type of injury than men, it could be a massive possibility. But as I said, it's great now that there is a few choices out there, but it's the same in women's football. It's progress. It's not fast progress, it's slow progress, but in the women's game any progress is good progress, of course.
Well, that's it, isn't it? In terms of your own career, right, and thinking back, Suzanne, and the boots that you were wearing, do you think it impacted how you performed?
At times it definitely 100% did. I had a pair of boots in the past that caused me a lot of discomfort in the heel, and it was just in terms of every single step, every time I was trying to run I could feel real pain, and that of course affected my performance in terms of how fast I could run, how easy I could move. Every time I changed direction I got a really sharp pain in my heel, and I know it was specifically the boots that I was wearing because it was as soon as I changed boots, and it was just down to years ago not being a professional football player. I didn't want to have to go out and buy a brand new pair of boots because I'd spent a lot of money on this pair.
Well, that's it, because they're not cheap, are they?
No, not at all. So it was, just kind of grinning and bearing it for a while and hoping that it would go away, but it got worse and worse until it got to the point where I did have to get a new pair.
Well, give us a bit of an idea of maybe people who've not necessarily bought a pair of football boots in a while, or maybe never. How much are we talking for a sort of average pair of boots that you would be wearing if you were playing professionally?
I mean, round about £100 is kind of what you're talking about, a cheap pair at the moment. So it's not, it's not a lot of money in terms of maybe other sporting equipment that people have got to purchase, but it is enough that you don't want to have to just go out and get a new pair if you feel a bit of discomfort in the pair that you've got. But they can go all the way up to kind of £200, £250, even higher than that. So it is quite a lot of people. Maybe I'll try and get boot sponsors to cover that. And in the women's game, you've got to look for specific people that maybe sponsor you to cover your football boots, rather than the men who just are normally sponsored by brands who actually just give them free pairs of boots.
Was that something that you spoke about in the team?
Not really. I think that, as the game's obviously developed, it's now things that you look into. But before it was just, these boots are causing a bit of discomfort. It wasn't, discussed in depth that could be, a possibility of what's causing the injuries, or it could be, as well, it's more just, maybe it's just these boots, maybe it's just my feet, not specifically geared towards female or male.
Well,
maybe just, these are a bit uncomfy for me.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? Because I find this quite remarkable, because, you would think if you know that the anatomy of a female and a male is different in terms of the fact that your foot's shaped different, or it's different sizes, or whatever it is that seems to be different. I mean, was that even something that you were aware of? Did you think, wait a minute, this is because my foot's a wee bit different from the shape of these boots, or was that something that was even aware of? And at what point did somebody turn around and say, right, wait a minute, we're going to need to sort this out here, because clearly these are not doing the job they need to do?
No, not at all. It wasn't. It was more just I bought a new pair of boots and I thought this fit must just be different. These must be made different. It was a kind of new boot that was supposed to be light, and I thought it was maybe just the design of the boot that felt uncomfortable towards me. So it wasn't again specific, thinking about my anatomy being different to the male's anatomy at all.
Remarkable. And now, as you say, though, that we're moving forward, there's now options out there. Have you tried any of them on?
Not yet, no. But I mean, according to FIFA, there's around about 29 million women and girls playing football worldwide. So it's a big enough blew up a big enough market to think, right now there's that many people,
Yeah.
playing, so, surely we can, do more to help support them, prevent injuries, encourage more to play. And there's so many role models now in the women's game. You've got so many, the Scottish girls, Erin Cuthbert, Kim Little, Rachel Corsie. There's so many role models there that if they marketed a pair of boots, there'd be so many young players that would want these specific boots. So, it's not as though you just go, right, it's Nike or Puma or Adidas or whatever people like this actual specific pair is, made for women, designed for women, and then you'd obviously have the young girls that would see, the role models wearing it and then think, right, that's a pair of boots that I want.
That's for me, and hopefully they might actually fit their feet properly.
Exactly, yeah.
That'd be nice, wouldn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Right, Suzanne, good to speak to you. Thanks so much for your time this morning.
Perfect, thank you very much.
That was Suzanne Mulvey, their former Scotland footballer. I think that's I don't know, it's remarkable, isn't it? The fact that, you think about it's taken to this point to say, well, actually there's differences in the anatomy of the foot, so it would be helpful, I guess, to get a pair of boots that fit you if you want to play football. Right, it is 10:49.
Enjoy live music from the Transmit Festival at Glasgow Green.
You say green, green grass, blue, blue sky.
When I remember I'm in love with you.
She moves in her own way.
Don't miss a beat. Transmit starts Friday night on BBC iPlayer.
You're listening to Mornings with Connie McLaughlin on BBC Radio Scotland. Still to come, we're finding out why more people are joining the No Low Club this summer, just shortly. And
So what do we know about Annie? She was born near Malmö in Sweden in 1975. She's a really talented linguist. She speaks 6 languages, which is pretty unbelievable. One of the things Annie loves most in the whole world is music.
in 2005, the body of young Swedish woman Annie was discovered on Prestwick Beach. Almost 20 years on, right? Journalist Hazel Martin, who you heard there, is revisiting the case as it continues to be shrouded in mystery. We're going to be hearing all about that and what Hazel's discovered just after 11 o'clock. Plus, our property experts are on hand. They're standing by for just after 11 o'clock. They'll be back to answer all of your queries. You can get in touch with whatever property questions you have on 80295, or you can give me a call 08085 92 95 00. And there it is. The Claxton means only one thing. Someone and somewhere has managed to get the right answer. Something's twigged, certainly for someone, because I think it was with that last clue. Because we've actually had a bunch of correct answers coming in. Marion in Bearsdown got there first, though. Well done, Marion. Guessing correctly at 10:40. She was joined by Stuart in the West End, Mike in Port Glasgow, and John in Paisley, as well as Rona in Inverness. Well done to all of you. I'm going to be giving you clue 4, 5 and 6 as the programme goes on. Keep playing along. We've got loads of wrong answers. Actually, let me give you just a couple before we go on to some music. Motherwell says Gary in Glasgow. It's not. Kincardine, no, it's not. Forth, Clickmannon. Queensferry, Broughty Ferry, part of Queensferry maybe, says John and Argyll. Nikki in Edinburgh. John in Paisley says Dalmeny. Canusi says Jackie. Kincardine says Roddy. Nope. Kinross, Ferry Den, Dalmeny, no, says John and Annan, and Kinross is from John in Skye. These are all wrong answers. Keep them coming in. 80295.
Hit the outs button now. Let's do this.
Into words I've never felt, the feelings that I'm
January. It's now all about dry July, so I'm told. For the first time ever, no and low alcoholic beer sales were higher in June than they were in January, with demand for alcohol-free options looking apparently to increase. So what is driving this change, and what options are out there for those of us looking to cut back maybe on our alcohol intake? Drink writer and broadcaster Helen Nicklin is with me. Morning, Helen.
Good morning.
And hello there. And freelance journalist Zoe Daniel also joins us as well. Morning, Zoe.
Morning. Hi there.
Hiya. Right. Zoe, what is your situation right now in terms of what's your attitude towards these sort of dry months, dry January, dry July?
Yeah, well, so I'm 24, so I...
Oh, I think we've lost Zoe. I think she's actually on a train going somewhere fun right now. So hopefully we'll get her back if she gets to her destination. Helena, what about you? Where are you with this? And where's the trend come from?
Well, I mean, it's a massive trend that's increasing really, really quickly. So I'm Gen X, but the generation driving this really is Gen Z and millennials. And there has been a massive increase, even in the last year, of people choosing no alcohol and low alcohol options.
But in terms of the actual sort of like the culture of this, what do you think is behind the fact that we're moving towards now this idea of less and less people, want to be out, want to be binge drinking? That's culture of the sort of, going out every weekend and getting drunk. Is that something of the past?
Well, I think there is still a big chunk of society that do that, but a lot of them aren't. And I think it's for a whole load of reasons, starting from like general wellness. I think post-COVID, everyone from every generation has been thinking, maybe I really need to take care of myself a little better. But also, there have been so many new exciting brands come out offering non-alcoholic alternatives to booze that actually have functional benefits as well, which I find really, really interesting. So it's not like you're just having a boring soft drink and standing in the corner. You're actually getting some benefits like to your mood, but also to your body. And they're really interesting. They're really flavorful, really kind of TikTok and Instagram friendly. So, yeah, I think the younger generation are really, really excited by what they can have. And there's also the big question of people starting their jobs at that sort of age, and anxiety, I've been told, is a huge, huge issue. So, the morning after anxiety and trying to avoid that at all costs is a big driver, actually.
So tell us a little bit about, I'm going to ask you in a minute about these drinks that you were speaking about the ones that are sort of, social friendly, the ones that you want to be posting because they look so nice. But that idea of anxiety or the fear, as it used to be known in my day, waking up with that feeling of the dread, oh my God, what did I say? What did I do? Blah, 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 that feeling. Are we seeing now, what you're saying is that the younger generation are now saying, listen, that's not for me?
Yes, absolutely. I think we've all been anxious all our lives, but it really, I don't want to call it a buzzword. It's just there's more kind of, people are more aware of anxiety and ways to deal with it, really. And alcohol has been shown to be a huge, huge cause of this. We all know that fear of the morning after. And I think it's even more important for the new generation on social media because, in my day, I'm 45. Thank goodness there weren't any camera phones on a night out. That is a big part of it as well. You drink too much and someone's going to have a record of it.
Yeah, those are pictures and videos and stuff that people don't want to see, and that's it, isn't it? The change in the way maybe society is right now is driving this. Really, really interesting, Helena. Thank you so much for your time. That was Helena Nicklin, drinks writer and broadcaster. We didn't manage to get Zoe back. She hopefully gets her destination on the train. Lots more to come after 11 o'clock. We've got the listening to BBC Radio Scotland with me, Connie McLaughlin. I'm with you for another hour, and still to come between now and then, our property experts will be here soon to answer any of your questions. So if it's interest rates, they may be confusing you, difficult neighbours, driving you crazy, or you're thinking about renting out your property but you're not sure what you need to do, get in touch now. There's still time to text. Text me 80295, or you can give me a call. Any question, too big, none too big, none too small, 08085 92 95 00. Plus,
a young woman found dead outdoors is always a matter of concern.
after the body of a young Swedish woman was discovered on Prestwick Beach in 2005, the case was immediately shrouded in mystery. But now, almost 20 years later, journalist Hazel Martin is hoping to uncover what really happened in a new 4-part series. We'll find out more. She's joining us shortly. And with new research from Parkinson's UK suggesting smartwatches could detect the disease up to 7 years before symptoms appear, we're asking how tech can help keep our health in check. Plus, Andy Murray, Cameron Norrie are going to be taken to the courts this afternoon at Wimbledon. We'll be checking in live for updates a little bit later in the programme.
All the conversations that matter.
Mornings on BBC Radio Scotland.
That, plus the fact I'm going to be giving you the next clue in Name the Place. Clue number 4 is on the way after this. Simon O'Keefe on BBC Radio Scotland. On BBC Radio Scotland, just coming up to 11:10. I did promise you clue number 4 for Name the Place, and I'm good to my word. Right, clue number 4. The local names avenue and castle do not refer to a street or a castle. The local names avenue and castle do not refer to a street or a castle. And you know what? There's probably a good idea that Carol Huff doesn't tell me the answer to these, because I'm probably in that situation where I would read it out and go, oh, that's right, that's because of this. Thankfully, I have no idea. But we've had a couple of right answers already, so congratulations to you if you were one of them. But I'm going to go through quickly clue 1, 2 and 3 and see if that helps you. Right, so clue number 1, today's place name shares a component with the name of a bridge over the River Forth. Clue number 2, it shares another component with the name of a historical county of Scotland. Clue number 3, it has a brutalist attraction. And clue number 4, the local names avenue and castle do not refer to a street or a castle. If that helps you in any way, 80295, let me know if you if that rings a bell for you and you've got a right answer. You've got an answer to give me. 80295. Right, okay, it is time for a property surgery with our experts Alison Hattrick and Anthony McGoldrick are back with us. If you've got any questions about buying, renting, selling your property, get them in. You can give us a call 08085 92 95 00, or you can send us a text on 80295. Now, loads of questions coming in already. Alison, I think I'll start with this one, and I'm going to ask you, this is probably your area of expertise. Angela in East Ayrshire says, morning property surgery. Hi Connie, I'm going through the absolute uproar of having a new kitchen fitted. I hear you. It's been problematic with wiring, upgrades, plastering, etc. My question is, if this renovation will add value or saleability to the house. It's a 3-bed, very old cottage, and I've paid off the mortgage recently. Is that going to add value to my house because she's got a new kitchen put in?
Well, the simple answer to that is probably yes. What I would say is that sometimes when you're having a new fitted kitchen, you spend larger than the amount that you would get back. I mean, the average is that you would add about £5,000 in value with a new fitted kitchen. But where I think in the current market you would really win would be that if a kitchen is not renovated, you would actually lose more than that value. So although the home report would reflect the fact that the kitchen wasn't upgraded, people will still tend to take more money off if the kitchen is very old and dated. What I would say is if you were specifically, and I don't think in Angela's case this is the case, just freshening up a kitchen to go to the market, then very often you can get away with new cupboard doors or a new worktop that makes it look much, much smarter for a relatively low cost, and that would avoid you losing money, as it were, on the value. But yeah, I think, Angela, you're doing the right thing to upgrade the kitchen. That tends to be one of the biggest selling points in a house.
And does it matter, Alison, too much about, we often hear that certain streets, certain areas have ceilings in terms of the prices in that area. So is that going to matter too much in terms of if you're doing something like kitchens and bathrooms are always the first thing that we think about?
Yes, I mean, I would have thought that might take you towards the ceiling in an area, for example, if everything else was equal. But as I say, where the major thing for me would be a buyer coming along and saying, right, okay, well, I'm going to have to do the kitchen and I'm estimating it will cost me $10,000. So they're going to want to take that off your price before they make their offer. So I think that having it at least clean and tidy and looking like it will do you for the first couple of years is a big plus in the current market.
Right, Anthony, this is one for you and your mortgage expertise. We've not got a name for this one, but they say family home for which we change mortgage to buy-to-let mortgage is in Northern Isles. We're taking a few years to visit family down under and have our house rented out. Mortgage is due for renewal, so can you tell me the best deals for that situation?
Good question. I think so it really depends on the individual's specific circumstances in terms of how much equity they've got in the property, because that will dictate what products they'd be eligible for. On this particular scenario, though, it sounds to me that what they might have done is put their existing residential mortgage onto what's called consent to let. So it's almost like a kind of switch it temporarily onto buy to let. Now, in that scenario, the majority of lenders will not allow you to switch onto a new deal while the property is being rented out. So what they might find is that they're actually stuck on the lender standard variable rate until such times as they move back into the property. So what I'd suggest to do is speak to their existing lender to establish if they're eligible to switch to a new deal, and if not, potentially speak to a mortgage broker to see what their options are out with their existing lender.
It's such a tricky time, Anthony, isn't it? I mean, we know already about the rises in interest rates. We talk about this most days on this programme, and we hear it on the news and everything else. But are there any signs out there that there's deals to be had? Is there a way that people can make this any easier on on themselves if they're coming to the end of maybe a fixed rate mortgage?
Yeah, the short answer is not really. To be honest, it is just that there's not particularly great deals available across the board. Also, the more equity you've got in your property, the better your options are. I know the kind of headline rates are the average 2 and 5 year fixed are in the region of 6+. There are still deals to be had in with rates starting with a 5. But that's really for people that have maybe got 25 to 30% of equity in their property. So somebody's maybe in their property for quite a few years, and maybe the property's up in value, their mortgages come down. It maybe won't be as high as 6 point something, but it certainly will be something starting with a 5. So it's still going to be, if you're coming off a rate of 1 and 2 and 3%, which most people are just now, there's going to be quite a significant jump, and there's not much ways around that. What people can do to try and manage the impact in terms of their monthly outgoings is looking at potentially extending the term of the mortgage. We're seeing a lot of people doing that just now, taking the mortgage term a bit longer just to bring the monthly payments down. In an ideal world, you don't really want to advise that, because the longer the term, the more interest you pay the bank overall. But ultimately, people are struggling now. So it is an option that's available to people should they need to do it.
What are we seeing, Alison, in terms of a change in the market because of this? Because we honestly talk about this, on a week-to-week basis. That you think at one point it can't go any higher, and then you start talking about 6%, and we don't know what's going to happen next. So, is there still the same confidence in the market, Alison, as there would have been before? In terms of there's some people who just think, well, actually, I need to move or I want to move, and I'll just have to take the hit.
Well, I think what you're saying is probably very true. Originally the Bank of England thought the mortgage rates would level off in the summer. Well, here we are in July, and as far as I know, this is the summer in Scotland, and they don't seem to be levelling off. There was another increase just a week or so ago. And it certainly will affect the market to a certain extent, because I think people had got used to low interest rates. They had more disposable income, so they were spending money on other things, buying cars maybe, or doing other things, and this is a kind of reset for the market where it's climbing up towards the levels that perhaps historically we were used to. I mean, it used to be that an 8% to 10% mortgage rate was the norm. So I mean, that's the scary bit. People need to think about, if they're taking on a new mortgage, do they need to go for a longer term fixed rate just to avoid that uncertainty? And even if it was to fall by 1%, would they be happier to have a fixed rate and know that that's not going to go up than any benefit of letting it come down with the market? And I think the main thing to remember is very often when people are selling, they're also buying. So there is much less effect on a seller who is buying again if the market has fallen slightly. In fact, looking at the figures from the Nationwide, Scotland market only fell 1.5% on June last year. So it's not as much in Scotland as it is in England, where you're seeing the headline rates of 4% and falls of 4.5% in London and things. So, I mean, I think, one, don't panic, and two, if you're selling and you're also buying, the chances are the effect on you will be negligible.
Yeah, because that's what I was going to ask about. If there's specific areas that buck the trend in terms of still holding value and similar to what we've seen the last couple of years, going crazy percentages over home report. Are we still seeing that in certain places, Alison?
Yes, I mean, I think all areas are very much local in Scotland, if that makes sense. I mean, people that buy in Glasgow wouldn't necessarily be looking in Edinburgh, shall we say. And people that would buy in Helensburgh, which is near where I live, won't be considering Stirling. You know, so the market is a local market. Make sure you're informed, go and see local estate agent, reputable surveyor or solicitor, and get a bit of advice on your particular circumstances, because it's only your property that's really of interest when you're selling.
That's true, isn't it? I know, absolutely. And well, in saying that, Anthony, we've got Hannah who's texted in to say she's got 30,000 left on her mortgage and she'd like to buy a property abroad. So she's looking at a sort of different type of market. She's asking what's the best option for her, or is it wise right now to try and think about purchasing abroad? She's got a property but no mortgage on it.
I would say that's really down to personal preference. Obviously, it's good to be in a position where you're mortgage free, and it would really depend on what her individual financial circumstances were. I think £30,000 is a relatively small mortgage, so if it would make her lifestyle better to have like a boat hole overseas that she could go to, then if it was me personally, that's what I would do. I'd love to have a wee flat in Spain or something to go to. But it depends if what her. I wouldn't say that, for me, I wouldn't view that as being a financial choice. I would say that's a lifestyle choice.
Well, in terms of if you're looking at thinking about mortgaging abroad, what's the options there for people?
Yeah, so if she's looking to mortgage. Sorry, I took that question as being she's looking to maybe cash buy abroad. If she's looking at a mortgage abroad, it would need to be a specialist mortgage broker that deals with overseas. There's a few in the UK. It's very limited. There's a couple of people that do it kind of quite well. But you'd really be advisable to get an expert in that field. I'd actually looked at it for one of my clients recently, and it's completely different overseas, and it was very specific to whichever country she'd be looking at, and that person would then be able to advise her on what the local laws are, put in touch with a local solicitor, all those kind of things, because it is completely different to buying here. So I'd say if Hannah wanted to go down that route, then just make sure that she's speaking to somebody who's knowledgeable of buying property in that area and can guide her through the process.
And that would be similar, Alison, as well. If she's looking to, you were saying there about speaking to local estate agents, speaking to local people who know that market a bit better. That's exactly the same scenario if you're buying in another country, I would assume.
Probably even more so, because you may not know the nuances of the market and where, for example, I mean, you just have to watch the TV on buying houses abroad and you find that, an area down the coast is 10% less or 10% more than the area you first thought of. So getting some local knowledge would be, I think, paramount in that case.
Let me ask you this, Anthony, about remortgaging. I know there's been a lot made in the newspapers recently about this idea of how you can do that and if it is the right time to do that in terms of rates. So trying to free up some cash from your house. Is that the time to be doing this? I know some people it might not be an option for them, they might have to do it, but what would the advice be for people who are looking to do that?
You mean in terms of like taking the money out of your property, maybe do home improvements? Yeah, I mean, I think I would say if there's not a specific need to do it, then perhaps now's not the best time to do it. To taking money out of your property, it would be quite a high rate of interest at the minute with the way rates are across the board, but also it could potentially put your loan to value percentages higher, which would mean then the total amount of paying the full mortgage would be higher. So taking out, say, £10,000 could actually cost you a significant amount of money, because you'd be paying a higher rate on your existing mortgage as well as the extra £10,000, for example. If there's no immediate need to take money out, then I would recommend just kind of waiting for rates to settle a bit, kind of expectations of maybe next year at some point, and take the money out at that point through what's called a further advance, where you contact your existing lender and ask them for some additional funds, would probably be the best bet. But again, everybody's slightly different. But I think that as a kind of blanket bit of advice, I'd say that's probably the best route to go down.
Alison, some people might think that the best way to make a bit of extra cash, if they need it, would be renting out one of their spare rooms. What would your advice to people be who were considering that as an option?
Well, having done it with my first ever flat,
how did it go?
It does suit some people. I found, and I think many people would find that, it really can impact on your lifestyle. In those days, I was young, free and single, and I was out a lot, and it didn't really bother me that there was somebody else coming and going to the house. But, I mean, in general, you have to think about the fact that that person has access to your house and, effectively, it's like having a permanent visitor. Who perhaps is not somebody that you would normally spend your time with. So I think there's quite a lot of issues from that point of view. The good news is that the government's rent a room scheme does let you earn up to £7,500 from a lodger before you start paying on the income, and you can opt to deal with that through your tax return and other reports to the HMRC, but the same would apply if, for example, you decided to Airbnb your house. That would also be an income that you would have to declare. In that case, you wouldn't get the tax break, and you're now going to fall under the new licensing restrictions. So in Scotland, if you let out a room for short term, for holiday lets, which people might think, well, that's preferable to having somebody here in my house permanently, you need to get licensed before you can do that. So, I mean, I think there's a lot to consider, and what you really should do if you're going to do that is perhaps go and see a solicitor or somebody that's a professional in that field that can advise you either about what kind of agreement you would have if you were letting a room, or what other restrictions are on you if you're deciding to let it as an Airbnb or something like that.
All right, making sure you've got all the facts. Always good advice. That was Alison Hattrick there from Inverclyde Letting Agency. Thanks for that, Alison.
Thank you.
And Alison, Anthony McGoldrick, mortgage advisor with Mortgage Wise Scotland. Thank you for that, Anthony.
No problem for having me.
See you soon. It is 11:26, which means coming up in just over half an hour's time, it's Lunchtime Live, and Vary Stewart is on the programme. What's coming up at Lunchtime Live, Vary?
Morning, Connie. Yes, I'll be here with Lucy. We'll be getting the latest from Orkney, where councillors have been debating whether to change the island's status in the UK, perhaps even joining Norway, because they think they're not being treated fairly under the current financial settlement. So we'll get the outcome of that. Also, we'll be hearing why the Scottish Greens are boycotting the royal ceremony at St Giles Cathedral tomorrow. They are instead addressing an anti-monarchy rally outside Holyrood. And we'll also be hearing the latest preparations ahead of tomorrow's event. Lunchtime Live will be outside. I will be outside St Giles Cathedral for all of that tomorrow. We'll also be getting the latest from Israel, where we know that they have had a major offensive in the West Bank. Well, right now there are reports of an attack in Tel Aviv, a car ramming incident with 5 casualties. So we'll hear what's happening there. Plus, Andy Murray starts his Wimbledon battle today. He is up second on centre court.
The world number one, Świątek. Here's the ball, a couple of bounces.
Nadal serves at deuce.
It's a lovely little lob from Alcaraz.
Slice forehand from Williams.
They are on fire.
It's outstanding defence from Murray. In steps Djokovic. He's trying to win it here. Every epic moment. Oh,
That's too good.
Don't miss a thing from Wimbledon, with live coverage of all 18 courts. Watch on iPlayer. Listen on BBC Sounds.
You're listening to Mornings with Connie McLaughlin, still to come between now and noon.
What do we know about Annie? She was born near Malmo in Sweden in 1975. She's a really talented linguist. She speaks 6 languages, which is pretty unbelievable. One of the things Annie loves most in the whole world is music.
After a body was found on Prestwick Beach almost 20 years ago, journalist Hazel Martin, who you just heard there, will be joining us to discuss the documentary which she's made, and she hopes to uncover the truth from that. So stick around if you can for that. Plus, as we're hearing Andy Murray and Cameron Norrie play their first games today, we're going to be heading live to Wimbledon for all the latest on what's happening on the tennis. And plus, can tech help manage your health with Parkinson's? UK suggesting smartwatches could detect the disease up to 7 years before symptoms appear. You can let us know what you think about that as well. You can text me 80295.
Get in touch with BBC Radio Scotland.
You can call our free phone number on 08085 92 95 00. Text 80295. Standard message rates apply.
This is BBC Radio Scotland.
We're also playing Name the Place this morning as well. I've given you 4 clues already. I'm going to give you the 5th in just a couple of minutes' time after this.
JJ, come on. Yeah, what? What's up, girlfriend?
What's up, boyfriend?
Yo, meet my girlfriend.
Meet my boyfriend.
This is my girlfriend.
This is my boyfriend.
So what's up, girlfriend?
So what's up, boyfriend?
You know, what's up? I can't get her off my back. Gave her a little love, she don't know how to act. She be getting mad cause I don't call her back. I didn't know honey gets down like that. Now brother gotta watch his back. This female is fatal attract. Maybe cause she got a sip of the jack. She didn't know I puts it down like that. That's why girlfriend on the phone. That's right. Call me all day on the telephone. Blowing up my people cause she ready to bone. Blame me cause won't leave me alone. She keep paging me, calling me, stalking me, hawking me, following me, telling me that she loving me. But my girlfriend said, just handle it, I can't handle it. Just handle it, I can't handle it. Just handle it, I can't handle it. Pick it up, JJ, one time.
Can't get him out of my hair. After one game, the truth is there. Calling my phone, asking where I be. Voice and screen, my main squeeze. It's 2 a.m., it's back again. All in space, all on the way. Plotting ways to get in my mix. Boy, there's already enough spice in this. Boyfriend on the phone. You call me all day on the telephone. Blowing up my picture cause he's ready to bone. Play me close, won't leave me alone. He keeps paging me, calling me, stalking me, hugging me, following me, telling me that he's loving me. But my baby said, just handle it, I can't handle it. Just handle it, I can't handle it. Just handle it, I can't handle it. Just handle it, I can't handle it.
Turn the lights off, it's about to get plenty dark. You wasn't smart, you started down with your heart. If I ripped it apart, don't hate me, thank me, baby. If my word was yours, it would drive you crazy. Cause I love what I do. Confused, talk to your tears until you feel there's something to prove. And with nothing to lose, I can see you being a tease. With me, just know we
that you was lost. First bite, had the toss. EVE, caramel skin, calls. And before you stroke the kitty, you better break off. The one up run that I shake off. Show me something. Diamonds in the furs ain't nothing. Impress me, left me with the hum. I think I'm frontin'. Big cat with a big gap, ready to one nut. You done swimming, baby, I'm stuck.
Why in the world would you continue to run my way? Got hit once, found out that I don't play. What the deal, mommy? Who pushed you through the irony?
Yeah, you flipping. All your ex-hoes had it. Daddy, I never front your game, keep me twitching.
No doubt.
How could you deny this freak? No need to speak, just meet me on Black Street.
Girlfriend on the phone. Call me all day on the telephone. Blowing up my people cause she ready to bone. Blame me cause won't leave me alone.
Boyfriend on the phone. You call me all day on the telephone. Blowing up my picture cause he's ready to bone. Play me close, won't leave me alone.
Girlfriend on the phone. Call me all day on the telephone. Blowing up my people cause she ready to bone. Blame me cause won't leave me alone.
Boyfriend on the phone. You call me all day on the telephone. Blowing up my picture cause he's ready to bone. Play me close, won't leave me alone. Boyfriend on the phone. You call me all day on the telephone. Blowing up my picture cause he's ready to bone. Play me close, won't leave me alone. He keeps paging me, calling me, stalking me, hugging me, following me, telling me that he's loving me. But my baby said, just handle it, I can't handle it. Just handle it, I can't handle it. Just handle it, I can't handle it. Just handle it, I can't handle it.
We out.
It's clue 5 and Name the Place is on the way, right? I've given you 1 to 4 already. Clue number 5 is the stars look down on wrong answers. The stars look down on wrong answers. Right, clue number 1, today's place name shares a component with the name of a bridge over the River Forth. Clue number 2, it shares another component with the name of a historical county of Scotland. Clue number 3, it has a brutalist attraction. Clue number 4, the local names Avenue and Castle do not refer to a street or a castle. And clue 5, the stars look down on wrong answers. 80295, if that makes any sense to you. Like 4 of our listeners have done already and got the right answer. This is your time to do just that. Right, it is 11:34. Let's head straight over to Wimbledon. It kicked off yesterday, but our reporter Keradine Itzan is there. Morning, Keradine.
Hello there. I'm
Right.
watching Dominic Thiem and Stefanos Tsitsipas. Pop quiz for you. Why am I interested in that match, Connie?
Well, the longest in history, was it?
No, this is happening right now.
No, but
It's Andy-
in the past. Oh, you tell me.
Andy Murray's next opponent will be one of these two chaps. They're out on court number 2. They were an 11 o'clock kickoff. Centre doesn't get underway until 1:30, and Andy's second match on, so he's up around about sort of 3ish, half 3. But he will play the winner of this match should he manage to get past Ryan Peniston, who is way down beyond 250 in the world rankings, fellow Brit, which he should do. Then it's either Thiem, who's a former US Open finalist, or Tsitsipas, who's the 5th seed. So a tough one for Andy Murray next, basically. And I'm just having a look as well. Outside, the clouds are gathering, the dark, brooding, gloomy storm clouds.
That's Wimbledon. What else will be happening?
Well, do you know what's funny? See, since they put that roof on, which is about 09:10 thereabouts, I don't remember much rain at all, ever. But we got interrupted yesterday for the first time on day one that I can remember in kind of in the last 10 years or so. And the forecast for today is not great. Frankly, it is poor. So thankfully, Centre's got a roof. Number 1 court's got a roof. So anyone who's playing there, which is Andy Murray and Cameron Norrie, home and hosed, not a problem. But everyone else, problems later.
Right, let's talk a wee bit about Andy Murray. How is he right now? If people don't necessarily follow tennis, what are they anticipating with that metal hip and everything else that's going along with that? Because he's won recently as well, hasn't he?
He has, yeah. So it's a curious one because he has won quite a few matches on grass at the level below the tour, at the challenger level. So someone as good as Andy Murray, frankly, is going to win those matches, or should be winning those matches, if they think they're at the kind of level where they can do some kind of damage at a Grand Slam, which he thinks he is. He says he's in the best shape, he feels, since he's had the hip surgery in terms of coming into Wimbledon. And really what we don't know is whether he can string together 5, 6, and if you want to win the thing, 7 best of 5 set matches across a fortnight. We've not seen him do that. We've not seen him in the second week of a Grand Slam since 2017. That's the year that his hip problems started to emerge. The rain's just started, by the way. I did say it was going to rain. That's Thiem and Tsitsipas are coming off court. The brollies are going up. The jackets are coming on. Oh dear. But yes, Andy Murray won't have to worry about any of this. It is. It absolutely is.
Right, okay. And we would expect Andy Murray to say that he's, his form is decent right now.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been saying that for a wee while, hasn't he? But what about the expectation, not necessarily from him, but the people that are there and that are watching, and I guess his fellow players as well?
Yeah, I mean, the good thing from his point of view is everybody knows he's playing professional tennis with a hip replacement, which, when you take a second and a step back to think about that, is astonishing in itself. So I don't think the expectations on Andy Murray are all that big, apart from himself, because he's put himself through all the work, all the pre-season work, all the rehab, 2 operations. He really, really wants it. But in terms of his fellow pros, they know he's at a certain level. It's not the Andy Murray of old. And in terms of the crowds here, well, they would love to roll back the years to 10 years ago when he first won it in 2013, won it again in 2016. Realistically, I think they would bite your hand off for Andy Murray in the second round. And actually, he could be facing Cam Norrie in a Battle of the Scots on Monday in round 4. I take that right now.
Right, I was going to ask you about that. Well, first and foremost, actually, tell us about Cam Norrie and how he's faring, or how we hope that he's going to fare.
Yeah, well, he is much higher ranked than Andy Murray these days. He's solid top 20, top 15. He's had a pretty decent season. Earlier on, he's playing some really nice tennis. He is a semi-finalist here last year, most encouragingly. You might remember that great match he had with Novak Djokovic, where he was a set up on the defending champion, and we all started to get a little bit excited. However, he went on to lose in 4. However, that was his best result at a Grand Slam. He's playing a Czech chap later, Thomas Machac, who he should beat. He could play Seb Korda, the American. Can't remember if that's next or in round 3. His draw's not horrible, and there's that tantalising prospect, if they win their first 3 matches, of Andy Murray versus Cam Norrie in second Monday.
That would be exciting.
That would be fabulous. It would, wouldn't it?
Right, okay, let's keep our fingers crossed for that. Stay dry.
I shall try.
We'll speak to you again tomorrow. Kerry Dinitsa there, BBC Scotland tennis and senior sports reporter who's at Wimbledon. He'll be back with us tomorrow, right, 11:39.
Catch up on the conversation. Listen via the BBC Sounds app.
Mornings on BBC Radio Scotland.
Now, almost 20 years ago, the body of 30-year-old Swede Annie Börjesson was discovered on the shores of Prestwick Beach, labelled a tragic suicide by authorities at the time. It's a case that remains shrouded in mystery, and one that journalist Hazel Martin takes on for a new 4-part series. And she joins us now to tell us more about it. Morning to you, Hazel.
Good morning, Connie. How are you? Thank you so much for having me on.
I'm good. Have I pronounced her second name correctly?
Almost. Börjesson.
Börjesson. Right,
Yeah.
okay. Tell us a little bit about Annie and what happened.
Great. Yeah, so as you said there, to this day, there's still so many questions about Annie's case. You know, it's the story of a young woman whose death was put down to suicide quite soon after her body was discovered on Prestwick Beach in December 2005. And the questions which arose afterwards and in the events leading up to her death are lots of things that happened, and, you know, it's all very mysterious, but it's something that we as a team felt deserved to be looked at.
And so at what point did you say, right, okay, like how did they know about this case in the first place, and what was it that made someone, you know, twig and think, right, this is something that we need to be looking into?
Well, as I said, you know, it's a mysterious case. It's one which people are still interested in and still talk about to this day. You know, Annie's body was found on a day after she'd made the journey from Edinburgh to Prestwick Airport. She told her family in Sweden that she was going to fly home to visit them around about Christmas time. You know, she'd paid advanced rent on her flat. She had booked a hair appointment in Sweden for when she got there. She even had, I think, library books to return. She makes her journey from Edinburgh Haymarket station to Prestwick via Glasgow, and there are a lot of strange things that start to happen on this journey, but most notably, you know, she arrives at Prestwick Airport, she is seen on CCTV entering the terminal, and then all of a sudden she leaves, she enters in through the kind of corridor from the train station into the main terminal. She crosses it, she goes out the other side, and then she very, very quickly just abruptly leaves, seems very distressed, and leaves again back the way she came. No one knows why, and then the next thing you know, her body's discovered the next day. And just in the events leading up to her death as well, there's just lots of very strange things happen. So there's a lot to unpack. It's very, very, very much a team effort because a lot of work went into it, about a year's worth of work. And it's now all culminated in this 4-part series, which is out today.
And the police have obviously investigated this, they say completely thoroughly. They ruled it as a suicide. So at what point do you say, well, actually, the police have decided that this is what's happened? Do you say, actually, we don't think that's what happened and there must be something else to look at here?
Well, I wouldn't say that we don't say, you know, we spoke to police officers who were involved in the investigations at the time. Well, as you say, you know, they say that Annie's death was fully investigated at the time, and, you know, a review was done of her case, and there was nothing to suggest any criminality. It's Annie's family who believe that there is more to it than that, and for the past 17 years, Connie, they've kind of fought to keep her name in the headlines, and they just fully believed that, you know, Annie was this really happy-go-lucky, really loved life, and, you know, she was really talented, and she spoke 6 languages, and, you know, she was a musician, and she just very quickly decided that she was going to move to Scotland after a quick visit. So she had so much love for life, and they believe, the person that they know, there's absolutely no way that she could have taken her own life. And so that, coupled with other things that we go into in the series, there's just a lot more to it in their eyes. So that's something that we felt, and kind of answers given at the time, and so forth. You know, we felt that there was enough to go back and really look at her case in depth.
How do you treat stories like this, Hazel? Because we often forget that there are human beings involved in these stories, and there's such a thirst right now for true crime and these types of stories, and we see them, you know, they're streaming all the time about sort of there's an insatiable thirst for stories like this. But when you're treating the story and you're a journalist as part of it, what's that like? And especially when you're so closely interviewing and speaking to, you know, Annie's family and people that knew and loved her.
No, absolutely. And I think that is such a good question, because, you know, as you say, as a journalist, it can be really difficult to leave stories like this at the door. And, you know, we're all human. You have to put your work face on, and you have to kind of go into these things and try and not be affected by it. But that's not always easy to do. You know, Annie obviously, was a person, and her family must live without her in their lives. And, you know, even though it's been nearly 20 years, they don't feel any different from when they first found out something had happened to her. You know, and feeling as if they've got answers, that they don't have answers. You know, it can be difficult not to let those feelings, when working on a story like this, you know, not get to you, but, you know, you're very mindful of the fact that this is a real person. There's people in her life that love her and miss her. You know, I, having looked into it and been involved with this project for the best part of a year, got to know Annie, even though I've never met her. You know, so even if you try not to, it's hard not to become invested.
Does that make you more motivated to try and investigate this more thoroughly, because you've spent so much time immersed in this person that you've never met?
I think yes and no. Obviously, first and foremost, I'm a journalist, so, you know, everything that I've mentioned just there, it's you do have to kind of look at that, look at both sides of it. You know, it's really important to, even though it is difficult to leave it at the door, you've still got a job to do. You know, at the time, you know, I was a child when Annie died. I was only 13, so I don't remember hearing anything about her story at the time. I first kind of became aware and interested in the case about a year ago. You know, and the fact that her news has been in and out. Her story's been in and out of the news in recent years because of her family and their search for answers. You know, that kind of piqued my interest, professionally speaking. So yeah, I think remembering that you've still got a job to do, but, you know, treating things sensitively is a good balance.
You say in this that you get further than any other investigation with the work that you've done. What do you mean by that, and what more can you tell us? And of course, we're looking forward to the documentary itself, or the series itself. But what can you tell us that, you know, in terms of how far you've gotten answers, perhaps?
Of course. So I don't want to say too much. It's all on BBC iPlayer now. It's rolling out from 10 p.m. tonight on BBC Scotland and on BBC Three tomorrow as well. So I don't want to say too much, but it's
quite hard, isn't it, to have?
I know.
You want to explain what you found, but you also you want to direct people and signpost people to the work that you've done. But and I get that.
Yeah, of course. Well, yeah, there are new things that we uncover, and there's information that's already out there, as I said, because Annie's case has been in and out. So in terms of kind of new things that we found there, when Annie's body was repatriated to Sweden, the undertaker noticed marks on her body that looked like bruising Now, we have spoken to one of the UK's top forensic pathologists. His name's Dr. Stuart Hamilton. He looked at pictures that were taken in the undertakers of these marks, and he says that the marks themselves look like bruising. Now, bruising can only happen when someone is alive. Dead people don't bruise is something that he says. And he says that these marks, which weren't reported, should have been reported in her original post-mortem, because a bruise is, he says, kind of a sign of blunt force trauma. So he's just commenting on what the marks look like, but this is kind of one of the theories as to why she was murdered, and that's something that we present. We also, it was difficult to get hold of information from the original police investigation in Scotland. But the team have managed to go via the Swedish authorities and basically get a hold of everything that was in that police investigation after many, many years. And there are things in that, for example, witness statements from people at the time in the lead up to Annie's death, which kind of give us an indication of kind of her mindset at the time, and that is really significant too. That's just a flavour.
Yeah, no, and that's it sounds as though you go into a lot of depth with that. I look forward to watching it. It's tonight, 10 o'clock, did you say?
Yes, tonight 10 o'clock on BBC Scotland, on the BBC Scotland channel. That's episodes 1 and 2, which will be the same for episodes 3 and 4 next week. BBC 3 tomorrow, and it's on all on iPlayer now.
Yeah, you can watch all 4 episodes. Lovely to speak to you, Hazel. Thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you so much. It was really nice to speak to you, Connie.
It's not a competition, but we did see a couple of dolphins in the water as we came into Malig.
I saw a kestrel. OK, we'll leave it at that.
This summer, explore the great outdoors with Mark and Rachel.
What is it about cycling then that you love so much?
It's a really nice way to see more of the country that I live in.
They'll bring you stories from across Scotland.
It's a beautiful green, verdant area.
All the trees that you're looking at here have been planted by local school children.
And delve into the issues that really do matter.
We see a lot of sewage-related debris.
Out of Doors, Saturday mornings from 6:30 on BBC Radio Scotland and Sounds.
We were good. But it never come that day that I tell her that I gotta run back to the Savior. Do my labor, cause his word is razor sharp. I forgot I hid it in my heart. Gotta do a clean sweep on the spot and drop everything that ain't clean. Don't take it for being mean. The brother's gotta fulfill his dreams. Yeah, I mean, she was hot. But don't get me wrong, you made me weak. I couldn't sleep, made my heart skip beat. Turned my rocky roads into 4-lane streets. Nobody knew the tempo to my heartbeat. Since I found you, I thought you were the right boo. Though I never sexed you, didn't mean God didn't bless you. Let me hit the dough, cause my soul's at stake. That's what I'm living for, it's the reason why I pray.
You made my toes bring my balance to the floor. You made my feet walk right over to your door. You had my ankles tangled and puzzled. You had my knees to the point they buckled.
What you doing to me? What?
In the light of day I'd stumble over your way. Couldn't wait for the nighttime, the high time, the right time. Be it as it was, we had to close the door. It was like turning away from $1,000,000, but I can't see you no more. It's like the cold of a lonely night, the draft of a window not shut tight. I've got a hunger for being right. That's what I'm living for. I'm living for. Enticed by the things you do is a one-way ticket to a devil's hell, fooling with you. My soul wants to be true. That's what I'm living for. I'm living for. You had my legs on a virtual restraint.
Let me go.
I could not move without permission from my trainer. You had my arms and hands wrapped around your lust. You made my heart bust.
Yo, so what you doing to me? What?
In the light of day, I'd stumble over your way. Couldn't wait for the nighttime, the high time, the right time. Be it as it was, we had to close the door. It was like turning away from $1,000,000, but I can't see you no more. It's like the cold of a lonely night, That's what I'm living for. What I'm living. I'm living for. Smile again, but you never win. Long as you're living and seeing, you'll be one short of 10. Can I make it one step closer to heaven when it's all said and done? Get the good for the getting. Don't mess it up with your mind being shaken, miles being taken off your journey, PDA. And what Kearney had to school me, don't let a little groupie turn your life into a movie. The cold of a lonely night, the drift of a window not shut. Somebody close the door. I've got a hunger for being right. I wanna be right. That's what I'm living for. That's what I'm living for. I'm living for. Enticed by the things you do. You ain't worth it. It's a one-way ticket to the devil's hell, fooling with you. My soul wants to be true. Yeah. That's what I'm living for.
Now, I did promise you clue 6 on Name the Place. Clue number 6, one of the most famous Scots died there. Clue number 6, one of the most famous Scots died there. You've still got a couple of minutes if you want to get the right answers in. And then we will get the big reveal from Carol Huff around about 3 or 4 minutes' time. Right, okay, so stick around for that. 80295 if that clue 6 is just like absolutely just you know, it's landed something in your mind and it's just sort of made things a little bit clearer. Let me know, 80295 if that is you. Now, how can tech help keep our health in check? New research from Parkinson's UK suggests smartwatches could detect the disease up to 7 years before symptoms appear. So how does that work and what other conditions could tech help with? Let's speak to the Gadget Detective podcast host, Fezvi Turkalp. Morning, Fezvi.
Hello there.
And GP Nick Dunn. Morning, Nick.
Morning.
Right, okay. Fezvi, tell us about this, the new tech detecting Parkinson's. It sounds like quite a remarkable discovery.
Yeah, and actually we've been sitting on a treasure trove of data. We just haven't known how to interpret that data. So this is analysis of more than 103,000 people who wore medical grade wearable devices, so effectively smartwatches that could detect their movement and particularly the speed of their movement. And they collected this data from 2013 to 2016 and then compared it to people who were known to have Parkinson's disease at that time. But then now that data is 7 years or more old, they could see which of the people who were not known to have Parkinson's went on to be diagnosed with it. Then an AI system, an artificial intelligence system, was tasked to look for the patterns. They were given the data of people who didn't develop Parkinson's and compared it to those that did. And what AI is very good at is spotting patterns hidden deep inside the data that isn't obvious to human beings. And now they've found two things. They can determine which people are in the early stages of Parkinson's well before the disease becomes apparent, and also people who will go on to develop Parkinson's who don't have the disease at the moment, which is quite remarkable. And the reason why this is important is that most of the treatments for neurological disorders tend to deal with slowing the process rather than reversing it. So if you can catch it early, then you know you can potentially treat people.
Nick, how important is it in your job that I guess not just for early diagnosis, but using different tools like the smartwatches? How important is that from a GP's perspective?
I think it's really important that people start to learn about their bodies and get fascinated by their bodies. I mean, I did medicine because I find how the human body works fascinating. I'm still fascinated by it. And the more you can learn about how your own body works, the more you're motivated to look after your health. Another example of technology that people can use at home, which I frequently recommend they buy, is a blood pressure monitor. They're very cheap now. They can use them as a wrist monitor or on their arm. And it's helpful because their home blood pressure readings are more accurate because it reflects real life, but actually gets them to take an interest in managing their health. And smartwatches now are incredibly sophisticated. Not only do they track your position and they can track your speed and the incline that you're walking on, but it can track your heart rate. They've also got ECG monitors that can detect unusual rhythms in the heart like atrial fibrillation that can put you at increased risk of stroke. Also measure your oxygen saturation reading, your oxygen levels in the blood. They also measure things like skin conductance, so the amount you're sweating, temperature. So it goes on. And I think that with modern technology, and as the other contributor said, the use of artificial intelligence and putting that all together could be really powerful.
It could be. Right, okay. Thank you so much for both your time this morning. GP Nick Dunn, you heard there, and Fesvid Turkalp, who is a gadget detective, the host of that podcast. Right, it is that time of the morning where we find out what's been happening with Name the Place. Let's catch up with Carol Huff to find out where today's clues lead us. Morning, Carol.
Morning, Connie.
Well done to Marion in Bearsden. She was first at 10:40. Stuart in the West End, Mike in Port Glasgow, and John in Paisley, as well as Ronan in Inverness, as well as Rose. They got, let's give it a drum roll.
On.
Right, tell us why. How did we get there?
Argyll and Bute. Okay, it shares a component with the name of a bridge over the River Forth. Cardross means a copse moor or copse promontory, from the Pictish word carden, meaning a copse, and Ross, a promontory or moorland. So Kincardine means head of the copse, from the same word. So we're looking at the Kincardine Bridge. Clue 2 shares another component with the name of a historical county of Scotland. That's Ross, also from the same word, Ross, a promontory or moorland. Clue 3 has a brutalist attraction. One of the main tourist attractions in Cardross are the ruins of St Peter's Seminary. Modernist architecture. It's a style known as brutalist, which uses bare building materials like unpainted concrete and so on. Clue 4, the local names Avenue and Castle do not refer to a street or a castle. They're the names of holes 11 and 13 on Cardross Golf Course. Clue 5, the stars look down on wrong answers. Cardross was the birthplace of A.G.A. Cronin, author of the novel The Stars Look Down. And Clue 6, one of the most famous Scots died there. That was Robert the Bruce, of course, died at Cardross in June 1329.
Marvellous. Well, thank you so much for that, Carol. Well done, as I say, to Mary, and she was the smarty pants. I got it first at 10:40. Today's place name was Cardross in Argyll and Bute. Well done if you managed to get it, and thank you so much for playing along this morning if you were part of it. I'm back tomorrow, actually, with lots more to come. I'm back tomorrow with the phone in from 9 o'clock. But it is time now to hand you over to the team at Lunchtime Live. It's Vary and Lucy. Have a good day.